match in Dallas that changes how you should see everything. And by the time you finish watching this, you'll understand why is he retiring is actually the wrong question entirely. Stay with me, because what I'm about to share with you, I've never said publicly before. The moment that final whistle blew, the internet did what the internet always does. He's done. Time to retire. 41 is too old for this. Let the next generation take over. Millions of comments, thousands of headlines, every pundit with an opinion. And almost none of them stop to ask the one question that actually matters. What does 24 years of sacrifice owe anybody an explanation for? Think about that for a moment. Before anyone decides what I should do next, you need to understand what I've already done. And once you see the full picture, and I mean really see it, is he finished stops being the right question entirely. In fact, it becomes almost disrespectful. Let me show you why. If you're over 40 watching this, I don't need to tell you where my story started. You were there. August 2003. Old Trafford. A skinny 18-year-old kid steps off the bench, so raw that even Sir Alex Ferguson himself wasn't sure what he'd just signed. I could see it in his eyes. Hope, yes. But uncertainty too. What you didn't know then, what none of us knew, was that you weren't just watching a player develop. You were watching the beginning of something that would run parallel to your entire adult life. My first Ballon d'Or, I remember holding and thinking about Madeira, about my father, about every person who said I was too small, too skinny, too much of a showman to make it. Then Madrid, the free kicks that seemed to defy physics. The 100-goal seasons that statisticians said were impossible for one man to produce. The Champions League nights. Lisbon, the header. Turin, the overhead kick. I still remember the silence in that stadium, just for a split second before even the Juventus fans stood up. That moment transcended football. It transcended rivalry. But here's what you might not realize. You didn't just watch my career from a distance. You lived through it alongside your own life. Your job changed, maybe several times. Your kids grew up. Some of them are adults now, starting careers of their own. Your hair started going gray right alongside mine. The first time you noticed it in the mirror, I bet you thought about time differently. That kind of shared timeline is rare in sport. It's part of why tonight stings the way it does for so many of you. It's not just about football. It's about everything those 24 years represent in your own life. And now here's the twist, especially if you're younger and you're watching this without those memories. I need to tell you something that might surprise you. This isn't nostalgia. I'm not standing here asking you to respect the past just because it's the past. I am one of the last living connections to an era of sport that will never exist again in exactly this form. The kind of longevity I've achieved, the kind of obsession with the craft, the kind of dominance that modern sports science insists shouldn't even be possible past 35. I've been proving them wrong for over a decade now, quietly, relentlessly. Every single year, same headlines. He's losing pace. He's not the same. This is the end. 30 years old, finished. 33, definitely finished. 36, surely now. 38, this has to be it. And every single time I answered, not with words, with performances. That's not decline you've been watching. That's defiance. Sustained for longer than most professional careers last in total. Let me give you the numbers because numbers don't lie. And some of these, even my biggest fans forget. Most international goals scored by any human being in the history of football. Not most by a European. Not most in the modern era. Most ever by anyone. 5 Ballon d'Ors, 5 Champions League titles. League titles in England, Spain, and Italy. 3 completely different football cultures. 3 different tactical eras, all dominated by the same player across 2 decades. And now 6 World Cups. Do you understand what that means? No outfield player in the entire history of this tournament has ever played in 6. Not Pele, not Maradona, not Zidane. No one. At an age where most professional athletes are coaching youth academies or sitting behind a commentary desk, I was still starting, still competing, still being trusted with the biggest moments in a World Cup knockout match against Spain, one of the most ruthless, unbeaten teams anywhere in the world right now. Whatever happens next in my career, that fact doesn't change. It can't be erased by one match, one goal, one final whistle in Dallas. Which brings me back to that night. And this is where the story takes a turn that most people completely missed. Let me take you inside that match. Not the highlights. Not the headlines, what it actually felt like. Spain arrived unbeaten in 34 straight matches, one of the greatest runs in their federation's entire history. 34 matches without losing. Let that sink in. But here's what the cameras didn't emphasize. We had already beaten them. Just 1 year earlier, Nations League final on penalties. Belief was still fresh in our squad. We knew we could do it again. This wasn't just another knockout match on a crowded tournament schedule. This was the latest chapter in a rivalry stretching back more than 40 meetings and over a century of shared history. Two neighboring nations. Two completely different philosophies of football. Identical intensity. The kind of rivalry where you feel the weight of every previous encounter the moment you step onto the pitch. For 90 minutes, neither side blinked. Chances were rare, hard-earned. Both defenses refused to break, absorbing pressure, trading momentum in small bursts that never quite turned into something decisive. Every tackle felt like it carried extra weight. Every sprint felt like it might be the last one in your legs. Then deep into stoppage time. Legs tired. Concentration being tested in the cruelest possible window of a football match. Those final seconds when your body is screaming at you to stop, but you? No one mistake ends everything. Mikel Merino found space that no one else on the pitch had seen. I saw it develop, I saw the gap. But by the time the ball fell to him, there was nothing anyone could do. The net rippled. That sound? I've heard stadiums erupt after my own goals thousands of times. But that sound, when it's against you, in that moment, it's different. It's silence and noise at the same time. Your mind goes quiet. The world around you gets loud. Spain's bench exploded off their seats. My teammates collapsed to the turf, some with hands over their faces, unable to process what had just happened in real time. And in the middle of that pitch, I stood there, motionless. I've lifted nearly every trophy this sport has to offer. Champions Leagues, league titles, Ballon d'Ors, moments of glory most players only dream about once in a lifetime, and I've lived them again and again. But in that moment, watching my 6th World Cup end in a way no highlight reel ever wants to show, I just stood there. Now, here's what I need to say next. Because this is the part that gets skipped in every hot take. Every "he should retire" headline, every furious comment section typed out in the heat of the moment. I don't owe anyone an immediate answer. Not the media chasing a quick headline. Not the pundits filling airtime. Not even the fans who are genuinely hurting right now, watching something they loved for 2 decades reach what might be its final scene. What I've already given over 2 decades of the highest level of performance this sport has ever produced from one individual. That debt was paid a long time ago. Paid in every 5A training session nobody ever filmed. Every disciplined meal, every recovery protocol, every decision made in private for years, while the world was sleeping, every time critics called me finished at 30. And I answered, then again at 33. Answered again, 36, 38. Every single time I answered with my performances. Not with a press conference, not with an Instagram post. On the pitch, where it actually matters. So when people demand I announce my decision immediately, as if I owe them that after everything I've already given, I need you to understand something. That question reveals more about them than it does about me. To the fans over 40 who grew up watching me rewrite what an athlete's body and mind are capable of, this loss doesn't erase what you witnessed across all those years. You watched something that will likely never be repeated in exactly this way again, by anyone, in any sport. That's not sentimentality. That's an honest read of the numbers and the eye test combined. The records, the longevity, the reinvention, from tricky winger to devastating goal scorer to the version of me that exists now, still competing at the highest level when science said it was impossible. That doesn't disappear because of one night in Texas, and to the Younger fans watching this, the ones discovering me through short clips and highlight reels rather than living through it match by match, week after week, for 2 decades, I want to say something directly to you. Thank you, genuinely, because here's a truth most athletes never say out loud. A legacy only survives long-term if new generations choose to pick it up and carry it forward on their own, without being told to. You weren't there for 2003, you weren't there for 2008, but you're here now. Still searching for my name, still watching the highlights, still feeling something when you see those moments. That means more to me than you know. The fact that my name still trends worldwide, still makes people emotional, still generates this much conversation 24 years into my professional career, that says everything about what was actually built here. Far beyond individual trophies, far beyond individual matches. So, the question everyone wants answered, is this the end? Here's the honest answer. And it's not the dramatic one most headlines are chasing tonight. Nobody outside that locker room knows for certain, not the pundits filling panels, not the reporters writing tomorrow's front pages, not even most of my own teammates standing next to me in that tunnel. But I'll tell you what I do know. What is absolutely certain. I have spent my entire career refusing to let anyone else write the final chapter of my story except myself. Every single time the football world confidently declared me finished, I chose the timing of my own answer, not theirs. And I proved it on the pitch rather than in a headline. That hasn't changed. That will never change. Whether my answer arrives this month, later this year, or after one more tournament somewhere down the road, I will be the one who decides when this story reaches its final page. But here's what's already true, permanently, unchangeably, regardless of what I decide next. Nobody will ever seriously question what I gave to the game across 2 decades. Not the effort. Not the sacrifice made quietly, away from cameras, when no one was watching and no one would ever know. Not the standard I set, a standard that no one else in this era has fully matched and that very few in any era ever will. That is not a career that simply ends in defeat on a Monday night in Texas. That is a career that reached its most recent scene on the biggest stage that exists in this sport, against its toughest available rival, giving everything that was left to give until the very last whistle sounded. There's no shame in that. There's only honesty. So whatever comes next, one more tournament, a quiet transition into retirement, or a final bow on my own exact terms, this much is already certain and will remain certain no matter what headlines say tomorrow. You were lucky enough to watch my story happen in real time, as it was actually written. Not reading about it afterward as history, trying to imagine what it must have been like. You were there. That is not something every generation of fans gets to say about an athlete in any sport. And now I want to hear from you. If this brought back a memory, a specific match, a specific goal, a specific night where you remember exactly where you were watching, put it in the comments below. Not a quick comment that gets scrolled past, your actual memory, the place, the people you were with, what you felt. Because those stories deserve to be read. They're part of this too. And if you want to be here for whatever chapter comes next in my story, whenever it actually arrives, stay close. Because this isn't finished being told yet. No matter what tonight's headlines are already claiming.